Hi, I'm Phil Bainbridge, and this is a quick tutorial video for the blog post to search Google Drive files and extract raw data. Now, I've already got a copy of the Google Sheet here, and I'm just going to show you the example Google Sheet files that I've got available and what we're going to do. So I've got 3 files here. It doesn't matter where in Google Drive these files are because the tool will search the entire of your Google Drive. But inside each of these, I've got just some sample data, basically. They're a bit jumbled in the other ones. But what I'm aiming to do is, in this instance, I'm pretending that this is the username of a student. Now, I've created a really unique string there that doesn't exist anywhere else in my Google Drive. What I want to do is search for any files that contain that particular string, so a username, for instance. And then I want to go into each file and extract that row of data along with the header row and bring it all together in a Google Sheet. So I'm going to copy that information there. And inside the words I want to search, I'm going to pop that into that dialog box there. Okay, I'm not going to change this bit here at the moment. That's for if you know how long your AppScript runtime is, which is typically 6 minutes at this point in time. So it's set to run for 5.5 minutes, but it's quite quick anyway in what it does. So the get file sheet is where the first part of the tool will go along and collate all the files that contain that particular string in Google Drive. So if I go to the admin menu and search Google Drive, what it'll do now is quite quickly, it'll pull across those. Now it pulls 4 files, even though I showed you 3, because technically this Google Sheet here also contains that search term here on the welcome sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove this first row because I don't need to extract data from this Google Sheet. So these are my 3 files. I've got a clickable link to take me directly to them if I want to. I've just got them that I know the Google Sheet, so I can filter on them, and these are the file names and IDs. So now on the extract content sheet, when I run the tool, it's going to pull the information out from every single file that is listed. So I'm going to go to admin and I'm going to run the second option there. And what you'll see in a moment is this. So I get a success message that it's sorted out those 3 files. And so now here we can start to see 3 chunks of information. So I get a file link to that particular file, the header row. So that's the row of data along the top of the sheet. So header row. And then the data row. So that particular student or string, the information has been extracted. And it doesn't matter the length of the data and how many columns it is either. It will just add it to the next column along. And that's what it does. It keeps iterating through. So it pulls the information and collates it together on the one single Google Sheet. Thank you very much.